Hello out there, everybody. Come and join us for the KRC Bookstore. Once again, I'm K.E. Robinson as your guest host. This time around, I know it's been a little bit since I've been here, but in the meantime, we've been keeping busy. Miss Tammy's been doing some things. Actually, she has some special things that are going on now. She's not going to be here tonight, but the next time she gets on, if she has not told you, she will tell you. She's got some pretty exciting stuff going on. So, you know, come join us, have a good time with us. We actually brought one of our authors back that was with me about a few weeks ago, maybe about a month ago. She's going to talk about her book exclusively tonight. I'll give you some updates on myself, but the focus is going to be on her tonight. What I will tell you that what I will tell you is, hey, we're here. We're going to have a good time. Whether it's two of us, three of us, however many we have gathered, we're going to come in and we're going to have a good time. But who I would like to bring back to the front with me at this time is Miss Joyce Smith. Miss Joyce, let me get you up here. Hey, Miss Joyce, how you doing?
I'm doing well this evening. I'm doing well.
Yes, ma'am. I'm happy to hear that. So Miss Joyce is actually the author of Daddy Syndrome.
Yes.
Okay. Now, before I get out of the way and let her do all the talking about it, because it's her book, the last time, if you missed it the last time, she's got a heck of a story here that she put together, and it's fiction, but it's still a heck of a story that I believe people can relate to. So, Miss Smith, thank you for coming back tonight and sharing this with the people again. And I'm gonna get out her way. Miss Smith, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, just a little bit about myself. I am an educator. I've been in education for about 20 plus years as an English teacher. So I spent a large number of my years crafting stories, analyzing stories, assisting students and adults with writing stories, writing fiction, writing nonfiction, poetry. So writing has been in my blood for a very long time. I think I can remember around the eighth grade writing my first short story. And I knew that it was something that I wanted to do. And I just assumed that I would be this great novelist. Well, I have shifted those plans. I do not know how many more books, at least fiction books, I will write. But I will tell you that this particular one, just like he said, has been a journey. It is called Daddy Syndrome. And I chose that particular title because it really talks about just the cycle and the continual process that a lot of people face as it relates to the mother son, mother daughter, father relationship. And so when I penned this particular story, it was over, man, 10 years ago that I actually started the story. It does follow three generations of women and the choices that they made related to the men that were in their lives. And so it is not a male bashing book. One of the things that I wanted to do was really place the responsibility where the majority of the responsibility lies, and that is with the women, the mothers in the story. So this particular story follows two mothers and also a daughter, and it's based on real life, but it is a fictionalized account of it. And when I say real life, it's not any one person, but just a compilation of things that I experienced within the classroom, listening to students talk about the relationships that they had with their fathers, or the lack of relationships. And it really bothered me because the majority of those conversations were not in a positive light. And so that's why I wrote Daddy Syndrome. And so it kind of follows and chronicles three generations of women, as I said before, and the choices that they make and the things that result from them not having a stable father figure present in their lives. I will say this, though. This is kind of a spoiler. The men are good men. So it's not male bashing, low down baby daddy type story at all. It is entertaining. It's fast paced. It's urban fiction, but it's clean fiction. It's something that will draw you in, but there is a message and a purpose attached to it. And I really do believe that it will not only entertain you, but it's going to provoke thought, and it's going to really get you to examining yourself and dealing with the issues that you may have. It talks about, just generational curses. It talks about patterns. It has a lot of things that occur with our main characters. I don't want to give it all away because, of course, I want you to actually read the story. But it's a good read, and I guarantee it'll definitely take you on for a ride. So that's just a little bit about Daddy Syndrome, and just what I think is my main objective for this particular story is for people to acknowledge and understand that fathers are important. And so a lot of times women need to just put their big girl panties on and suck it up. Just because you're not in the relationship with your child's father does not mean that he should not play a pivotal role in the relationship, because it is necessary. Both parents are necessary. And so that was the motivation behind me writing Daddy Syndrome.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry to make sure my microphone was up here because I always turn it off by mistake when I go to the side. So, Miss Smith, you're an educator, right? And I
Yes.
know you said this is derived from what you've heard from your students. Well, I know that you have probably encountered a lot of different things with
Hmm.
your students. So, what made this particular issue the one that you wanted to write about? What about this particular issue?
So I would hear comments about if my dad was on fire, I wouldn't spit on him. I'd hear things, just I don't even know where he is, or my mom won't even let me see him. She's stupid. Just different things like that. When I initially started penning the story, there was a girl. Her name was Sherelle, and I would call her name every day on the road, and she was never present. And so one time I asked, I'm like, where is she? And the kids was like, oh, she's at work. And I was young, I had a little smart mouth, and so I'm like, well, you need to tell her that if unless she's trying to earn whatever point 25 an hour that she's getting at that job for the rest of her life, she needs to get here and get an education. And so the very next day she showed up. And so apparently, I guess I was just used to marking her absent because I didn't call her name on the road. And so I heard a voice say, you called for me, you were looking for me, miss. And so when I looked up, it was this girl. She was, her posture was kind of belligerent. She was slumped down in the desk. And I'm like, who are you? Because I did not know this girl. And I mean, it had been at least several months since school had started. She said, Sherelle. And I'm like, oh, okay, welcome. They told me that you spend your class time at work. Where do you work? And the class just started laughing, ha ha ha. And I'm like, okay, what's so funny? And so someone blurted out, oh, behind the building. And I'm like, what? And yeah, behind the building, she has them lined up. And she says, sure do, girls and guys, it doesn't matter. And I'm like, wait, what? And I thought maybe it was a joke, but she was very serious.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so every day after that, she came to class. Super smart kid, and we hear this story a lot about really smart children, but the girl was really smart. She had passed out of her standardized test because I believe she was a junior when I had her, but it was a ninth grade
Yeah.
class. So she was retaking the class. She had passed out her test. She never missed a day after that, at least in my class. Even after she passed my class, because she did pass, she would still come back every day to speak with me. Well, one day when she was in my class, one of the girls asked her, how did she join a gang? What was her process like? Because she was in a gang. And I won't mention what it is, but she was in a gang.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the girl was asking her, did you get messed up? Was it a lot of pain? Thinking that she got jumped in. And so she says, no, that's the old method. We do what is called a 3.5. And so 3.5 was basically a sexual contact with the top three lieutenants for 5 minutes each. And
Mm.
as she began to share her story, this story just began to just like, oh, wow. And I think I kind of tuned her out. Literally, the kids were working on their work. She was talking to someone, and I literally zoned out. And before I knew it, I had several pages written then and there. And so she's one of it started off with her loosely based around that particular character. But as I really begin to think about what the root cause of so many of those similar stories, that's how it evolved to being more about the fathers being present. And I don't even know what her relationship was like with her father, because that was not something that
Right.
I ever discussed with her, that I heard her say in class. So it just began to just really be a compilation of just everything over the years as it relates to the father daughter dynamic, which is what specifically this particular book covers. Because a lot of times, unfortunately, women think that they can do it all, and I'm here to tell you, you can't. You can raise a well-rounded child without the presence of a father. A father can raise a well-rounded child without the presence of a mother. However, I guarantee you there is a void. And that child may be well adjusted, that child may be successful and do well in life. But just like it took two to conceive, to really give a full rounded, emotionally stable child, you need to have both parents actively in the child's life. And a lot of times women do not feel like, um they need the father. If the father's not there, if he doesn't own up to their level of standards that a lot of times they don't even have for themselves. Let's just be real. But they'll hold him to higher standards because they're mad about the new person that he's with, or how, just a plethora of things.
Yeah.
And yeah, he could be dirty, he could be low down and not doing different things. But if he's trying and he's actively desiring to be a part of his child's life, then you need to allow him to do that, and then maturely you all work together. And so that's really what this particular story is about.
Oh yeah, and I understand. I feel that personally, that it should be about the child and what makes
Mm-hmm.
them, what
Absolutely.
makes them healthy, well, healthy and happy. I meant to
Yeah,
say happy,
absolutely.
but in my opinion, no matter what, and sometimes I've grown up like this. No matter what, when a child shouldn't know the things that you know about that other parent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As
Mm-hmm.
far as all the bad stuff, the child should
Mm-hmm.
never hear that coming from
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you
Absolutely.
as the other parent,
Mm-hmm.
because when you're soiling that parent, the child looks up to you. That
Right.
child starts to soil that parent as well, or they start to want to know for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So either
Mm-hmm.
way,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably best that you let that child be exposed to their parent.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
question for you is, why do you think that the single mothers that are put in that situation, or put themselves in that situation, either or, why do you believe that they take it on their backs to do it on their own, with and where they'll exit the father out?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they have
Mm-hmm.
to, but the ones that don't,
Mm-hmm.
why do you think they just
Honestly,
push the father out?
I
Yes, ma'am.
believe that they really need inner healing. I believe that there's just, life disappointments, standards, wanting to feel, successful. It could be bitterness, it could be a plethora of issues. But I believe that there's just an area of healing and wellness that need to take place, because at the end of the day, especially a functional parent that loves her child is not going to bash, not going to put down, not going to pretend to be superwoman. We have society standards, absolutely, but we know when we need help. We know that we're not, as a lot of times, as strong as we appear to be, but for whatever reason we have to hold it down. And so a lot of that just has to do with inner healing. A lot of that has to do with the examples that we had, that
Right.
we actually were used to, what we were used to seeing, and what my mom did it. But that doesn't mean that that was the best way. That may have been the only way, that may have been the only thing that she knew. You
Right.
understand what I'm saying? And so I
Right.
think that a lot of times, women tend to want to wear the weight of the world on the shoulders when we don't have to. We don't need to be victims. We have nothing to prove. But I do think that inner healing, counseling, being able to deal with, the stresses of life, the disappointments of life, play a very big factor sometimes in how mature we are in the relationship that we're trying to co-parent, as well as us trying to do everything or feel like we can do everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a two-person job regardless.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, it's actually more than that, in my opinion. I still believe it takes a
The
village
village mentality. Yes.
to raise that child. So I mean, when
Yes.
you start pushing a person out because of personal stuff, it might get a little hairy. But I always say, leave
Mm-hmm.
it to that child. If there's
Mm-hmm.
anything bad about that, if there's anything bad about the other parent, that child could see that for themselves. They
That
don't
that
need to
that's
tell
absolutely
anybody.
true. I 100%
Yeah.
agree with that. And I think that when the child is older, when the child is mature, and when you're talking about patterns, then maybe that's the time to have a conversation. We'll say, listen, this was something that your father dealt with. This was something that I dealt with, or your grandmother, your aunt. You want to make sure that you're being aware. Like if alcoholism running your family or something to that extent, then there's a way to deliver those things where now that child can be aware of and watch out for signals and stressors and things of that sort, because we do want to stop the cycle. You understand what I'm saying in terms of those types of things. But I absolutely agree with you that when it comes to just bashing you just like your daddy, and different things like that, no, that's there's an area inside of you that's not well, that needs to be made whole, and it should never get to that extent. And a lot of times the child will grow up to resent you. When that child is older, they will begin to understand that that wasn't necessarily the best route,
Right.
and they'll have resentment. And a lot of times, unfortunately, you'll see that cycle continually perpetuated. There are some that says, hey, this is how I was raised, I didn't like it, I'm breaking the cycle. But a lot of times we don't immediately see that. It takes a while. And if you were to take a moment to really think back in your family, whether good or bad, you'll see habits, you'll see patterns, you'll see things in your family that are repetitive, whether it's success based, or if it is something that is more negative, you'll see those patterns begin to erupt. I see that Tammy says, let the child make the decision. I agree to a certain extent. And the reason why I say that is because I am the product of a single parent home. My dad was present. He wanted to be in our lives. My brother and I knew that he loved us. However, we didn't really care to go over to his side of the family because their values were a little bit different than
Right.
what I was raised with. Like, they like to drink, and to us that was like, oh my goodness, that was a bit much. And my mother never talked bad about my dad.
Right.
She never forced us to go over there. She would allow us to go if we wanted. When we said we didn't want to go, we didn't. So it was good and bad. It's good because you want to identify to make sure, okay, so is there a reason why you don't want to go over there? I want to make sure that you're not being verbally or physically abused, that you're not being uncomfortable. So I get that, but a child is still a child. And so the adult does have to take the lead. The child can't say, well, whenever I need him, he's never there, and now he want to take me somewhere I don't want to go, and you say, okay.
Right.
Absolutely not, because
Right.
you still need to honor your father.
Right.
But you want to put together a plan that will make both people comfortable.
Right.
But it's not an option to not allow the child to be to make the decision to not be present in the child's life when there are no major red flags. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So in
Like,
that instance, and I say that because, and that was a really good comment, because there are parents that will say, okay, well, if you don't want to go, you don't have to. No, you absolutely need to go. If you can't
right.
give me a good reason, because then yes, you need to build that relationship. Do we need to choose neutral ground? But you need to be able to spend time and develop that relationship. Talk to me, have a conversation with me, and let me know why you're feeling this way. And then we'll maturely discuss that, hopefully with your father. And there's ways to do it, but just the blanket, no, I don't want to. I don't agree with that.
Yeah. And that still takes a
And it's just
certain
an
amount
opinion.
of no, and that still takes a certain amount of respect between
The
the
two people,
parents. Yeah, I mean
right?
that's still a certain amount of respect between them, and I think that's the most important thing. Like you
Mm-hmm.
could
Yeah,
like if you can't be together, that's one thing. There's a lot of you're gonna have a
right,
lot of relationships where you get with somebody and
right.
I don't want to say a lot. I don't want to. You're gonna have relationships where you get with people and you break up. That's gonna happen.
Yes.
But once you realize that you two are not meant for each other, then let it
Mm-hmm.
just be that y'all are not meant for each other. Not
Right,
that y'all have to be enemies, not that y'all have to be at each other's throat.
right.
Because if you produce a child, you got to deal with each other for at least the next 18 years. And really, it's
Yes.
beyond that.
Right,
It-
that's true. It beyond, absolutely. My daughter's 20 now, and she still needs intervention from her parents. So yeah, absolutely. But I do understand that the child should be, if at a certain age, the child should have a voice. So because you want to make sure that things are well, but it needs to be understood that we honor a person for the title that he carries, and then we try to work around those as much
yeah.
as we can, those less than desirable, elements.
Yeah.
And it does. It definitely takes two. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain characteristics that child is going to get that comes from that other side. If you're not, it's one thing if that other parent does not want to be involved. That's
Mm-hmm.
one thing. But
Mm-hmm.
if you can answer those questions for your child by just letting them see that other side of the family, that's a whole different thing. That's
Right.
a whole different thing. Letting that child be able to understand who they are by them knowing both
Yes.
sides of their family. Now you're giving them the opportunity. If something happens with that other side of the family and that child is like, nah, I'm not comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And the
Right.
child could give you a
Absolutely.
good reason, like we were saying
Right.
earlier, that's one thing. But to just be like at the front door because being out of spite,
Mm-hmm.
spite is never right. And I don't know
Right.
why people
I don't care if you got to go to the McDonald's playground. You don't like to go over there. Let's go to the playground and sit outside. I will sit 200 feet away while y'all laugh and talk or something. There's a way
yeah,
to do it. but you got to be well, and you got to be mature and healed too, because if you've been in a bad relationship before that didn't end well, initially, especially at the beginning, I don't make guys may be different, but a lot of times we're thinking about what can we do, turn off lights, light tires, it's a lot of not saying the hey, I didn't say me, I'm just the universal there may have been some moments where I'm not giving away all of that, but you can you tend to sometimes think about some ways and being petty and ways to try to get back to that person, or I'm moving on to show them I'm living my best life type thing, not
Right.
understanding that it can affect the child, and
Absolutely. Absolutely. Had a bunch of thoughts pop in my head. I'm
oh
sorry.
goodness, uh-oh, have we,
No,
we
no, no,
got some
not from me. I
experience.
don't. No, 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 I
Uh-oh,
don't. No,
okay, okay.
not none of my own stories. No, I don't. I don't get those.
Right, I've never done anything illegal.
Yeah, none of my stories.
Thinking,
Just
hold
just
on,
stuff
no,
I've.
I've no, I have never.
No. But and I wanna ask, do you think? Because I've heard different things, and since we're talking about it, you don't think women just woke up one day and was just like, "Hey, we don't need the dads," right?
No, no.
Don't you think maybe possibly I'm asking that some of this was done possibly by the government
Okay,
in
this like
certain
what do you
certain packages that they offered? Oh, like welfare. Hey, you can't have anybody, a man in the
mean?
house. We'll
Mhm,
give you this.
mhm,
And not to say this comes just from welfare, but it's an
mhm,
idea that's put out there.
mhm,
And then now you got
mhm,
parents doing it.
mhm, mhm.
And then now, oh, I don't need a man. Well, they paid for us not to be here.
Right.
They're breaking up our
Historically,
families.
I would say that that definitely probably played a factor, because I'm familiar. I know around the 1920s, when we would study like the Harlem Renaissance and things like
Yeah.
that, in school, they would talk about the government housing and how it was originally for Caucasians, but then they would move the whites in, and they would go to the suburbs, and then they would put systems and structures in place to where you don't necessarily have a two-parent home, or if you had a father in there that worked, then you weren't eligible for support to supplement what you may have been doing. And so it can be a cycle. So yes, I personally do believe, I believe in just the government that have played bigger roles in that. But I think for us to stay, and this may be a little deep for some people, but I think so many years for us to still be susceptible to that mindset, I really do believe it has a lot to do with just generational curses and cycles that have not been broken. I understand that the iniquities of the father visited onto lines and lines of families that are not dealt with, and that's not broken, and part of that is knowledge, is information. And so that's a part of it. I think that if there are women that says I don't ever have to have a man in place, it's usually because there's a deeper issue, because there may be
Right.
some that say, well, I just want a child, I don't need to have that person. But we
Right.
know that typically we were created for community. We were created to love and to have intimacy. And so when instances occur that disrupt that natural order, then you can have those twisted ideals. But just in general, no, I don't think so. It definitely has a connection to something that's deeper, that may have happened to you personally, that may have happened indirectly, that wasn't dealt with. And then society, even as a whole, if you look at social media, and no shade to the boss chick, and I'm the boss woman, or whatever those things that you hear, that boss type mentality. But for uh someone can maybe twist that to mean I can do it all, I don't need anyone. And this isn't what I don't need them, but I desire. All of those types of mentalities, to me, are wrong. I'm just gonna be straight out. I ain't even
Mm.
gonna make it be clear, because if you being a boss, saying that you don't have to have relationship with
Yeah.
someone, you need somebody, because you didn't get to boss status by yourself. Somebody purchased your product. Somebody shouted you out. So
Right.
when we begin to develop those things, that's covering up issues as well. That's covering issues as well. But we do have that society's perception of a boss person is a person that we catch flights, we get flued out. I think that the little TikTok thing said,
Yeah. Yeah. That's what
we
it is.
have
Exactly.
those types of things of building wealth and building generational wealth, but the fabric of the family has decreased. Now you have polyamorous relationships. You have, the relationships where you have a mother, you have a father, but they don't necessarily have to be married. The sanctity of marriage is no longer valued like it used to be. As long as that person is present, as long as we're working together, then it's fine. So we have so many different ideas, and so so many different perceptions that yeah, the traditional family in a lot of instances is out the window. And I do believe that society's perception definitely is a contributing factor to that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and what I meant it the way you said it, with like back in history when it was a thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's kind of rolled down. So we're kind of
Mm-hmm.
on the
Absolutely.
same page with that. Yeah, I think it's something that's
Absolutely.
kind of rolled down, because not that welfare is even the problem now. It's just
Right.
that it's an ideal. That's what it was then, and it's just rolled
Mm-hmm.
down to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Mm-hmm.
like what you said about the boss thing. Now I might get in a lot of trouble because of who I'm going to quote, but I think people will appreciate this man a lot more once they see
Oh
all
goodness,
of the
not
stuff
Kevin
he's done.
Samuels.
I know, yeah.
Ah, why did I
Once
know
they
that?
see all of the stuff he's done, I know he said a
Mm-hmm.
lot of harsh stuff. He was a little
Mm-hmm.
rough on his delivery with women, but he was the same way with men
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of stuff. That
Mm-hmm.
you just have to see it. I think
Mm-hmm.
the stuff with the women was more popular,
Right.
but one thing he said to a woman one day, and not that it's because it's a woman, but she
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Oh, I'm a boss," and he was like, "You have no employees?" And she's like, "No, I do it on myself." You're the boss of what?
Right. Right. The typical definition of a boss. Yeah.
You you have no employees. There's nobody working for you or under you or around you. More
Mm-hmm.
importantly, with you. So
Mm-hmm.
when you talk about doing the relationship thing, you're a boss, but as the single parent, well, you have nobody to argue with anyway.
Right. Right. That
The
that's very
child's not going to argue. The child's not going to argue. Well, younger, the child is not going to argue with you. You don't have anybody to compete with. You don't have anybody
true.
to bounce off of in case you're maybe saying or doing anything wrong. It takes
Mm-hmm.
two, because it takes two perspectives.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And then with success, a lot of times it will make it easier to feel as if you don't need that person in your life because you're able to provide for the child without assistance. But it's not about monetary
Right.
assistance. That's what we're not realizing. There's an emotional component that is there that is so important that both parents play a big part of. And so a lot of times we miss that piece because we are making gains and strides in terms of our income and our status and the ability to be able to afford things by ourselves. And so
Right.
we're looking at it as if we're successfully doing everything that we need to do for our child, but you're missing that most important piece. And that's
Yeah.
just my opinion, but that's what I
Yeah, I mean that's what we're here for. We're here to have
think.
discussions and
Hmm.
express opinions. And if
Absolutely.
anybody's arguing with you, they're not putting it in the chat box anyway, so we're okay.
Nah, I'm just that's for the replay, folks. I'm just playing.
We'll see a bunch of comments on YouTube later on. Oh no, shit.
Okay, good. Hey,
Yeah,
any publicity.
yeah, whatever works, right? I mean,
Okay, whatever works.
but
Absolutely.
honestly, I think I feel that we as a people, and it's on both sides. Now I know we're
Hmm.
talking about the moms as daddy syndrome, but
Hmm.
some of this is because we got some jackasses as dads,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
sperm donors.
Hmm.
Because if you're a dad, I'm not talking to you
Right.
right now. There's a certain amount of responsibility that goes on both sides. I know when it came to my kids, my ex-wife was gonna have to fight me in the street behind mine. But we have an understanding when it but
Right.
that's respect. We were able to talk about, hey, these are two boys. Let me take them. I'm not gonna keep them away from you,
Hmm.
but they're two boys.
Hmm.
Let me take them.
Hmm.
And I'll make sure you still see him, because I know emotion. I'm not going to be emotional about any of it. I know I'll make sure they still have their mother around. It's never going to come to that.
Hmm.
Daughters need their dad too.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Daughters need to know what type of man is presentable. And
Hmm.
a lot of daughters who have their dad, that's the type of man that they're looking for.
Hmm.
A man with those type of
I agree.
ideals.
Yes.
I have to clarify because Facebook people are funny. That's typically who they're looking for. It gives them somebody to shoot for, shoot at, as far as ideals,
Mm-hmm.
the man that their father was. Because you hear them
Mm-hmm.
say, "Hey, I could get my
Mm-hmm.
daddy to do." to, if they have their father, you better not go over there and can't fix nothing or can't do nothing. They'll be like, "Well, I could just get my daddy to do it." Well, get your daddy to do it. But that's what it is. And
Mm-hmm.
those girls are a little bit more confident because they know that they are
Mm-hmm.
taken care of either way.
Mm-hmm.
So for the mothers that are in position, that have somebody in position, what would you say to the mothers, particularly who have somebody in position who wants to be there, maybe doesn't want to be with them, but wants to be the father to their child without being with them?
You know, um, I would just say you really have to figure out what is the barrier behind it. And that's what's so important about this particular book, because we see that it really has to do with just the mother's perception, the mother's areas that need to be dealt with.
Right.
And so, if you have someone that's not perfect, but is willing to be present, it's willing to, to be a part of the child's life, even if it's not the way that you want it to look like. Because see, we'll put, like I said earlier, we'll put all of our ideals and perceptions on how we think he should parent, but we ain't even holding to that same standard.
Right.
You have to understand that nobody's going to be perfect. But if you have someone that's willing and someone that's trying, but you still feel defensive, you still feel overprotective, you still feel as if it has to be your way because you're the mother, you have primary control, you need to get you some help. Period. You need to get you some help. You need to find out what the root cause of that is, because I don't believe that any woman that is healthy and sound and whole will willingly not do what is best for their child, even when it doesn't suit their own purposes,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't feel good to them. Because a lot of times they'll sacrifice, they'll go without in a lot of areas. So we know that that the mothers love their child.
Yeah.
But when it comes to allowing the father to father, there is a hang up there. So that is something that is connected to the mother, because if you don't have red flags, there's no violence, there's no abuse, there's not something that's going to put the life of the child at risk, and you're still trying to be everybody, and he doesn't need that side of the family and my child doesn't need him, then it's more about you, and you need to get the help so that you can understand that putting your child first is more than making sure that he's dressed well, that lights are on, that the water is running, and that he's doing well in school. It's
Yeah.
bigger than that. And
Much
I
bigger.
have met too many people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond who are now beginning to realize the impact of not having that other parent there, because it's not just about the flip side is there are relationships with that are dysfunctional with the mothers in the family dynamic, and that's briefly mentioned on in this book as well. But it really hones on that father that is decent, that is trying, and the woman being the barrier to allowing that relationship to go forth. And so you need to recognize that it's you, boo. It's you. It's you. Yes, he may have his own issues, but you can only control what you are putting out there. And so really beginning to deal with that. Absolutely.
No, absolutely. Like we've said earlier in so many ways, it takes two.
Hmm.
And if there's two that want to do it, do it. If the other one can't, then okay,
Yeah,
we
then you can.
understand. We
Absolutely.
understand. Then you got to do what you got to do. But I mean, I've
Absolutely.
seen, even recently, I've seen something where a young lady has said, "Well, I'd rather." I forget what the young lady said, but basically she was saying she wouldn't ask her baby's father for anything. They could be her and her child could be stuck out in the street. She wouldn't ask her baby father for nothing. Wait, did he tell you he's not gonna give you nothing, or you just that willing? You just want to prove so much that you can do it on your own. A child's health is not a proving ground.
Right. That's good.
A child's mental health, physical health is not a proving ground.
That's good.
What can you do?
Hmm.
One of
That's
our one of our greatest artists, and I'm still gonna give him a lot of credit because he's still a genius. He's a little out there, but he's a genius. One of our greatest artists lost the only parent he really had, and he spiraled shortly after that.
Mm-hmm.
Kanye West has not been the
Mm-hmm.
same
Mm-hmm.
since Donda left.
I agree.
And I don't even know the story behind his father. I don't know it.
Right.
But what if you are that child that depended so much on that one parent? Because I'm not saying I don't know, like I said, I don't know the story behind Kanye's father. But what if you
Mm-hmm.
depended so much on one parent, only knowing that one side, that when that parent left, you were just off?
Right.
Do not put your child in that position when there is another willing parent to step in, support, and help.
Absolutely. Well said.
I,
Well said.
thank you. Thank you. I just, this is an important subject because our community. I just don't get it. I don't get the bravado and the pride behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. I'm gonna let my child go without to say I did it on my own.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? So, Miss Smith, you have this one,
Yes.
and I wanna. I don't think I asked you this question before, so I'm gonna ask it now. Is there another book that you're thinking about doing, whether it's a follow up to this or something separate completely?
So I had a friend who just really ran me ragged about, is there going to be a sequel? And I'm like, there is not going to be a sequel. I do not plan on writing another fiction book. I'm going to tell you
Okay.
right now. I don't
And
plan
you
on
did
writing.
say that earlier. You did. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I don't plan
You
on writing
did.
another fiction book. I'm not saying that I won't. But I don't plan on writing another fiction book. But I do have a book that I have outlined. It's called Residue. And it basically deals with the gunk that's left behind. So you've gotten out of a relationship, you've gotten over a major illness, and you're thinking that all is well because you're past that event, but there's still residue. There's
Yeah.
still things that need to be healed, that are at play that we may not recognize. And so,
Yeah.
really beginning to deal with the after effects of a major event, a major life movement or issue. And so, and it could even be dealing with this particular issue, someone who didn't grow
Yeah.
up with their father, and then maybe their father, they reconnected later in life, and so everything is whoop de whoop de whoop and wonderful, but I guarantee you there's still some residue there. And so that's one of the projects that I have coming out, and then I'll continue to work on just my stage plays and the
Yes,
film
ma'am.
writing. And so what I would desire for Daddy Syndrome, and I've outlined, and I'm going to start back working on the pilot, is I want it to be a television show. I believe that it will
Yeah.
fit well as a series. And so there are a lot of rich characters, a lot of additional storylines that can take place there. And so I'm kind of excited about just where this particular one will go. But as far as another book, another fiction book, I'm trying to tell you, I don't think so. Now, if Simon and Schuster comes up and say, listen, we want to offer you 6 figures on a 7 book deal, then,
That's
then we
different,
might
right?
have to get to writing. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe that that's where I'm going to go with that. So I'll definitely write books, but it will be more motivational, be more self-help, more informative. And then on the fiction side, I believe I'll stay with just stage plays and scripts, films, and television.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah. No, I completely understand. I was trying to think. Residue is the other book that you
Uh-huh.
owe us.
Yep,
Yes, it
yep, yep,
is. I had
yep.
to think. I had to get you to say it for me to
That
remember.
is correct.
That's the book you owe us. But even and you mentioned okay, being the child dealing with that
Mm-hmm.
residue, but where does that even come from? Sometimes maybe there's residue from the relationship with the two
Mm-hmm.
parents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
That's
even
true.
if it's not
That's true.
even if it's not directly connected to the story with the young
Absolutely.
lady, it's still
Absolutely.
in the same realm, which is I think
Absolutely.
is pretty good. So,
Absolutely.
Miss Smith, I want you to tell everybody where they can find you, where they'll be able to find Daddy Syndrome, and eventually
Right.
find residue.
Well, you can connect with me through my website, jasmithproductions.com, my Instagram at jawrights01. And of course, I'm on Facebook. I have an author page and all of that, but my name is so common that it's easier just to connect with me on Instagram. There's a link to the trailer for the book. There's I have been doing a lot of interviews, and so eventually I'll upload the links to all of the interviews that I've been doing. You'll get a chance to see about some of the plays and things that I have. And so J.A. Smith Productions, and then of course IG. I'm trying to get more into that hip Instagram. I don't like Instagram. At one point, I only had like 7 pictures on there, so I started screenshotting the things I was posting on Facebook as images. I know, but listen, but I've been getting a little better with my stories and stuff. So I think the preferred area will be JA Wrights 01 on Instagram, because there's a link to everything else that you would need to kind of get in touch with me and see what I have going on.
I completely understand. I just got on Twitter maybe
Oh
somewhere
my goodness, we ain't even
recently,
gonna talk about Twitter.
and
Oh,
I didn't like it until maybe roughly yesterday.
I have
But
one of those too. I don't even remember what my Twitter handle is. Every now and then I'll try to put something up there, but me and Twitter, we aren't real
yeah,
good friends.
I'm a little sick of Facebook and the have no rhythm, as I
Oh,
like to call it. So
right.
but that's a different issue as we're streaming on
That's
Facebook.
funny.
Uh,
Mhm.
but Miss Smith, I want to thank you once again for coming out here
Absolutely.
and telling us. I know this time we had a little bit more room. We actually had to have a little bit more of a conversation about everything. So I truly enjoy that. So, but before I let you off of here, right? So
Hmm.
we told everybody about the next book. We told everybody about where they can find you. Told
Hmm.
everybody about what we can expect next. So you sure you're not gonna write another fiction book?
Yep, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure you have to come with some serious change to go do that,
Well,
because
guys,
that was a journey.
we got to start a GoFundMe, obviously, to
Right.
get Miss Smith to write another what's called the
Oh
book.
my
We're gonna
goodness.
have to scrap our coins together to get another one. That's completely fine though. But before we all let out of here, guys, I want to thank you all for coming through and joining us tonight. I think that Miss Tammy actually did pop up on here at
Yeah,
some
I saw
point.
it. Mhm.
And so Miss Tammy, thank you for having me host
Absolutely.
again,
Thank you.
and for having Miss Smith come back again, because this discussion we were able to have was actually pretty good that we were able to have.
Hmm. Hmm.
I will be back here on May 27th. I might be talking to you guys a little bit more about my book, is that shortly before it comes out.
Ooh.
Shortly before my second book in my Crescent Moon Chronicles comes out. And I think I
That's
mentioned it a little bit before. And mine is fiction. That's all I know how to write. I'm not like Miss Smith.
that's
I'm not I'm
exciting.
not very realistic. I gotta stick with my fiction.
It's
Okay,
in
but
you. You can do
yes,
it.
but I will see you guys then. In the meantime, if you want to catch up with me, um, I'm on Instagram, in Twitter as the Liquid Lion. Okay, on Facebook it's Ke Robinson author page. That's pretty cut dry and simple. If there is something else I don't remember, it maybe LinkedIn or something like that. But also, if you want to hear more talks and stories that I've done, check Spotify. You can check iTunes, Amazon Music, all those things with the author spot. I'm the current host for the author spot. I'm there, like I said, all your major streaming service, Spotify, Amazon Music. I'm trying not to say the one that they're not on. I think the one we're not on is Pandora. Okay, and I'll put it to you that way, so you can look at all the other ones, Google Podcasts, all those things. But if you want to hear from me between now and May 27th, that's where I'll be. The author spot podcast that are already on there. Um, Miss Smith, anything you want to say to the people before we get out of here?
No, I'm just excited. Great conversation. I really appreciate you all coming back and interviewing me again and
Yes,
allowing me
ma'am.
to talk about my novel.
Yes, ma'am. No, we're absolutely happy to. I think yours is an issue that we need to. It needs to be discussed heavily,
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely.
right? It needs to be discussed heavily, regardless of community. But now that we were able to focus on it a little bit more tonight by itself, then I think that worked out pretty well. So you all, this has been another KRC bookstore. We'll be hearing from you guys later. I will see you guys on May 27th. Miss Tammy might have some things in between there, but she will tell you about it. I'm absolutely sure. So, everybody, good night from Facebook Live in the KRC bookstore.
All right. Good night, everybody.